He knew exactly where your pain lived because he'd lived there too. Dr. Brown Donald wasn't just a therapist. He was a therapist other therapists sent their toughest patients to. The man who could take a decade of trauma and reframe it in a single, devastatingly insightful sentence. They called him the empathy engineer. He was awarded for his work in PTSD, invited to NATO briefings on trauma-informed response, lectured on the neuroscience of healing, while he was quietly studying something far more disturbing, because behind the soft voice, the practice nods, and the PhD certificates was a man quietly building a map of mental vulnerability. And when the map was complete, he began testing it, not to heal, but to destroy. In public, Dr. Brown Donald was magnetic, formerly an Air Force trauma officer turned humanitarian therapist. He specialized in layered trauma, working with abused children, war survivors, and victims of ritualistic cults. He saved my life. He understood me better than I did. These were the kind of testimonials he received daily. Dr. Donald, on stage. Trauma doesn't break you. It rewires you. The question is, who's holding the blueprint when you heal? People cried at his seminars. Colleges built departments around his research. But no one, not a single person, asked why Dr. Brown Donald never kept long-term patients. You see, most therapists burn out after years of trauma work. But Brown Donald didn't burn out. He got sharper, more focused, as if your suffering gave him energy. And then people began disappearing. Dr. Brown Donald didn't just listen to trauma. He studied how people processed it, how their faces changed, what words made their eyes dilate, what tone made them cry. Over time, he began to collect something he called the empathic mirror reflex. When a patient cries, a therapist mirrors their pain. But what if the mirror bends a light? What if the mirror breaks? Dr. Brown Donald, private notes. Colleagues noticed he was becoming more experimental. Using new methods he refused to submit for peer review. One involved what he called pain looping, where he'd replay a patient's worst moment over and over until their emotional defenses collapsed. Dr. Donald, soft, coaxing. And when he hit you, how old were you again? Patient responding, choked, 12. Dr. Donald, say it again. Patient, I was 12. And what did you do wrong? Nothing. I didn't do anything. Patients left the sessions healed, but hollowed. They said things like, it felt like he took something from me. One woman, Jessica Lauren, described it best. It's like he saw your soul and then rewrote it. You leave the session feeling better, but you're not quite you anymore. In 1952, a little-known experiment at Stanford involved therapists who were trained to mirror psychopathy, to reflect patients' darkest fantasies without judgment. The study was shut down. 2 therapists suffered psychological breaks. One became violent. Dr. Brown Donald referenced this experiment in his doctoral thesis and underlined a single line in red ink. Those who understand darkness too deeply often begin to speak its language. The first body was found in late autumn. A former patient, Marcella's Rain, was discovered in an abandoned greenhouse, wrists slit vertically, a telltale sign of suicidal knowledge. But here's what didn't fit. No note, no blood on the leaves, and inside his wallet, a folded piece of paper with the words, mirror, echo, shatter. The police dismissed it. Another tragic suicide. But across the country, a graduate student in forensic psychology was watching. Her name was Layla Quinn, and she had just started a research thesis on therapists who cause harm. What Layla would uncover in the coming months would not only shake the foundations of psychology, but reveal a pattern hidden in plain sight. Dr. Brown Donald had been leaving breadcrumbs in case someone like her ever got close. Layla Quinn was 26, a doctoral student, fierce, quiet, obsessive. She didn't believe in coincidences, and something about Marcella's Rain's death didn't feel random. Layla recorded Donald's former patients. The long-term ones, where are they? I found 2 more suicides. Same ritual, same phrases, and none of them Had family left to file complaints? Layla dug deeper, through public records, obituaries, academic forums. What she found wasn't just disturbing, it was a system. Every suicide tied to Dr. Donald had 5 eerie things in common. They were high trauma patients, abuse, war, cult survivors. They'd seen Donald privately for 4 to 6 months. They had no close family. They left behind cryptic words: mirror, echo, shatter. We rewired wrong. And their deaths were technically clean, like textbook case studies in despair. Layla called it the echo signature, a pattern masked as natural death. But this wasn't just forensic pattern recognition. This was psychological engineering. Layla opened the first edition of Donald's book, The Empathy Paradox: Why Healing Hurts. In Chapter 7, titled Dark Empathy, Donald describes what he calls a silent link between therapist and client. Once a patient projects vulnerability, the mirror begins to hum, and the hum can be tuned to soothe or to break. She zooms in on margin scribbles: H equals 12, B equals 4, R equals mirror trigger. The pages weren't just theory. They were algorithms, emotional blueprints, a psychological kill code, hidden inside clinical language. Layla cross-referenced client initials, session dates, and phrases. And that's when she found it. Layla found some tapes with static distortion, recordings tries to amplify frequencies, and then whispered phrases emerge. Dr. Donald had recorded his sessions, dozens of them, but under the surface, almost inaudible, was something else. Whispered mantras, subliminal voice layering, enough to subconsciously destabilize a person already on the edge. In one tape, as a patient sobs, Donald's voice fades in, not to comfort, but to repeat a phrase 17 times in under a minute. Let go, fall, mirror waits. Layla had just uncovered the first clinically recorded murder by therapy. The world still saw him as a genius healer. But the mirror was cracking. One rainy night, Layla came to Dr. Brown Donald's private clinic. IT was supposed to be just a meeting. She came as a student, with a notebook and a recorder hidden in her sleeve. She'd requested a 1-hour consult. Professional interest in trauma therapy models, she said. What she really wanted was to see the mirror up close. Dr. Brown Donald walked in like he was gliding. Calm, warm, the kind of calm you only learn after you've watched a lot of people break. Layla presses a recorder under the table. Layla, do you believe therapists can cause harm, even unintentionally? Dr. Donald, smiling. Of course. All healing walks a knife's edge. Layla, and if they knew they were causing harm, would it still be therapy? Dr. Donald, that would depend on the outcome, wouldn't it? What if the outcome is death? She asked. Dr. Donald, calmly, you think pain is a wound to be bandaged, but it's not. It's a code, and some people are meant to be reprogrammed. The broken don't need healing. They need to be erased. Dr. Donald, whispering, you looked into the mirror, didn't you, Miss Quinn? I hope you're ready for what stares back. He didn't attack her. He didn't threaten her. He just stood and walked out, left his own office, left Layla sitting there, heart pounding, reality bending. Layla handed the recorder to authorities who analyzed the audio and confirmed the pattern. The tape was enough to open the door, but not to slam it shut. Dr. Brown Donald vanished 48 hours later, abandoned his license. His bank accounts were empty. His last known location was a border town in New Mexico, where a man fitting his description bought a used motorcycle and disappeared into the desert. They never found him. No body, no confessions, just a trail of broken minds and silenced lives left in his wake. The world once called him a healer, but those who saw the mirror, they know better. Dr. Brown Donald didn't kill with a weapon. He didn't stalk victims through dark alleys or leave bloodstains in motel rooms. He killed in daylight, in therapy chairs, with words. What Donald discovered, what he weaponized, wasn't magic. It was science. When the human brain is deeply vulnerable, it rewires based on the most consistent emotional input. If that input is compassion, we begin to heal. But if that input is predatory empathy, manipulation masked as care, the patient breaks and doesn't even know they're broken. A study on therapist-induced dissociation showed that when trust is breached in the therapeutic space, the trauma surpasses the original wound. What Donald did wasn't just abuse. It was systematic erasure of identity, done under the pretense of love and healing. Various podcast interviews praised him. Magazine articles called him the healer of the damned. We live in a culture that confuses intelligence with integrity, charisma with conscience. Donald didn't just wear a mask. We gave it to him. We rewarded his insight, his charm, his success, while ignoring the subtle signs, the too perfect silence. Why? Because he told us what we wanted to hear. That trauma could be rewritten like a bad script. That pain made you special. That healing could be sold. Layla Quinn's testimonial. If you ever feel like someone's healing you, but you're shrinking at the same time, run. Real therapy makes you more you, not less. Somewhere out there, Dr. Brown Donald might still be watching, listening, maybe even still healing. But if there's one thing this story teaches us, it's this. Even the ones who speak softly can be monsters. And sometimes, the scariest killer of all is the one who can make you feel safe while they erase you. The mind is a fragile mirror, and once it's shattered, you never see yourself the same again.